Hello and welcome to a new episode of whatever this is. Alex, you had a topic via text chain that I think I want you to explore more, if you don't mind. Or we can pick a different topic, but we're just gonna go jump in and be free spirited, as it were. So
Iterate, continue.
Yeah, we've had some pretty big topics as we kind of discussed outside of the podcast. So let's try to narrow it down a little bit and talk about from kind of an enterprise SEO stance, but also just kind of from your personal workflows, the tool set. So tools have changed rapidly with SEO over the last 5-10 years drastically. And we're seeing kind of a next iteration of that. And I know it could be an ongoing topic with our podcast about AI and how that's interfacing with SEO and how that's kind of changing things with SEO. But where do you see the tools kind of going in the next couple of years? And where do you kind of see it kind of playing out and how it affects your life and your work life? One, for instance, just kind of moving back a little bit, not so much AI, but just a little bit more just advanced programming, kind of seeing the growth of things is, as always, named the SEO tax, Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog started out as a really, really basic crawler. Didn't really pull much. There was another free tool called Xenu that's still out there. Didn't do much better than that one. It eventually kind of built up and it became easier to use. There's some little visualizations, but not much. It's pretty just spreadsheet data heavy kind of a thing. But lately, they added issues. So they started listing out, here's some things based upon the data. We just didn't grab the data. We're now actually giving you a little bit of analysis to it. And you can click in and see, here are your broken pages, which includes 404s, 410s, and all the other 500s, other kind of stuff. Here's a little bit more of pages that are pretty light on content compared to the other ones. Stuff like that. Not just giving the percentage of, text code ratio or something like that, or word counts, but now it's actually giving a little bit more. So as that kind of chain continues, where do you see the tools evolving? What kind of things do you think the tools will do? What kind of things do you think we'll no longer do ourselves? And how is that going to kind of affect your day-to-day?
Yeah, I think Screaming Frog is a good shout just because it is a really good example of it, was built for a very specific purpose,
right?
By, a single person or a small team. And it's gotten really good. It's gotten some really cool features on it now for really not that much money. Like you want to talk value for money in a tool. But Screaming Frog would probably be at the top of my list. And at this point, we have no affiliation with them. It's just a really good tool that we're recommending. So the cool thing that I've been using it for, not necessarily in an enterprise setting, but for like the one-off hobby stuff, is the automated crawling that then gets exported out to Looker, which is, formerly Google Data Studio.
Yeah.
And having that reoccurring scheduled crawl that automatically exports into that sort of data collection, visualization platform, along with all of your other data is awesome, especially with like what Google's doing with GA4 and the automated analysis there. Like that to me is really where a lot of that stuff is coming, or the tools are going, which is fantastic.
Can you talk through that, Dave, a bit?
Sure. So if you're unfamiliar with some of the new stuff that Google's doing, in 6 months from the time of this recording, Google will shut down its old Universal Analytics. That will be no more, and it will be on this new GA4. And if you go into analytics right now, there'll be these little like starburst things on the side, and if you click that, it will automatically analyze all of the data that's in there and will tell you specific things of interest. Right, so 60% of your traffic is coming from this particular channel, or people coming from social media are tending to do these behaviors, right? Which is really nice because that's exactly what you go in for that that kind of stuff anyway. But on top of that is the more you interact with it, the more it learns what you prefer to see. So then it will give you that data right away. And you can also type in a question to say, like, I need to know the likelihood of, direct traffic converting on this particular form. And it's, and that's really nice. Other, data platforms, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
I think it's coming. I think that will be kind of the standard. Even if you can do it on an Excel sheet too, that capability is already there, right? Like synthesize my data. It's wonderful, right? My only call out on this kind of stuff though is with the automation, and it's the same kind of stuff with the chat GPT stuff that's really hot right now. I get concerned with how people will just start shortcutting things and will sort of lazily do things without critically thinking. I told ChatGPT to create this blog post. It's up. And then, I'm waiting for the day where Google comes out and says, yeah, we figured out how to see all the bot created content, and all of that will be, delisted. And then you will have, these 1,000 websites that people have created, or an entire year's worth of blog posts that people have created just go to trash instantly. And of course, you'll see all the news articles on how the world's burning and this is awful. And, no, it was lazy marketing, you bum. Like,
as a quick note, maybe before we move to ChatGPT, because I think we could talk for hours on that.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about, Alex, your question about sort of tool stack and where it's going and how it's evolving. I think, Dave, you sort of illustrated a good journey that we're seeing, which is we've got this major shift towards automation of all of our tools, right? You don't have to sit there and sort of do the manual crawls and export, and you don't have to sit there and, do all the analysis and insights. I mean, certainly, of course, we do need to look at those and be critical about it, but it's becoming much more sort of, hey, here's a jumping off point. And a lot of the things that we need to do are sort of made easy. And I think that's going to be continuing more and more. It's just sort of a streamlining of the things that we've already done. And then sort of we go along with it to make sure, oh, okay, yeah, that checks out. Or, oh, there's a question. I've got to look into that. I think that sort of mindset is still important as we move forward.
I want to bring into kind of two topics too. I guess there's always like the advancement curve one, where it's actually a funny thing. So in Minnesota, a lot of snow, and I saw my news app saying there's going to be high precipitation or high humidity. You're really going to love that air conditioning today. And I was like, oh, because it's 100% chance of snow. Yes, I guess it will be humid, high precipitation. Like it was just, it tried an automated prompt, and it was based off of one little piece of data, which obviously wasn't complex enough to actually really understand the situation that was going on. Like that was, I'm not gonna be running my air conditioning. Thanks. It's freezing. No. And then the other one is like the, oh no, AI is going to steal our jobs sort of question, because that always comes up whenever there's any kind of technological advancement. Doesn't matter if it's the light bulb or what, but there's always going to be that kind of question. A weird kind of thing that I tried once. I had a business partner. We tried to create our own SEO software. A lot of it was kind of based off of kind of some crawling tools and then some analysis that was kind of based off of that and the like. The thing is, it always stopped there. That you could get the analysis. Same thing, which sounds like with what GA4 is going to do. You can get the analysis, but then it becomes the question of, on our system, with our company, in our situation, how do we actually do something about it? And that becomes, it was a stopping point every single time. And we were kind of looking at largely through kind of a technical SEO perspective. Wasn't really a phrase then, but that's really kind of what we were looking at, was just crawl data and, robust TXT file stuff. But then it became a question of, are you running WordPress? Are you running Magento? Are you using Shopify? Are you using Square? I mean, what system are you using? How are you actually going to change it? How are you going to actually implement it? It becomes this huge stopping point where you still need the experts in the room to get the data, know how to use the data, know how to even ask the right questions in the first place.
Right.
And then you kind of move it along as it goes. Like, you still need the developer. You still need some individuals who are pretty darn smart to even know, okay, social media is converting at a 10% ratio or 10%. Is that good? Is that bad? How are you going to actually do something about it? That's so many other questions there.
And I think the fantastic benefit of a lot of the progress in our tool set is that those first couple points of getting the data and sort of analyzing the data are made so much easier, which in situations I've been in the past, that's half the battle. If you don't have an analytics or an insights team, you got to get scrappy and you got to do it yourself. And that takes a lot of time you could have been spending on those other steps of the process, which now you can spend a lot more time affecting change rather than trying to figure out what the change ought to be.
Oh, absolutely.
The thing for me, though, as I've been playing around with AI and watching all of the posts on LinkedIn and everywhere else about all of the cool things people are doing with it, and some of the shady things that people are doing with it.
Always the pessimist.
I feel like it's exactly, well, that's too strong of it. I need to couch my terms. I feel like it's representative of the baseball in the late 90s, early 2000s, where they had all the steroid scandals. It was like the gameplay was amazing because you had Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa hitting, 70 home runs a season, and it was amazing. And then now they just have a little asterisk next to their name because, they were caught using. Right. And I feel like that's going to be similar with AI, where it's like you feel the pressure to use it because the productivity gains are amazing. However, is it actually representative of your brand? Will it actually come back at you for, whether or not you're kind of cheating? Right. And because it's so early days, it's like, you just kind of have to figure that stuff out. Or is it like the Tour de France where everybody's doing it, so if you don't do it, you're just screwed?
I think we need a new analogy for this. This is ChatGPT is steroids. I was thinking more along that when you brought up baseball, my mind immediately went to Moneyball, where it's like all of a sudden we have a new set of tools that allow us to look at this game very differently, and we get to level up our ability to succeed at the game. Right. And it's a mindset shift. It's a different lens.
Yeah.
Through the analytics piece is that particular thing. However, one bit of context that I didn't bring up yet, and I actually had it earmarked to bring up as like a separate section, but to your point, they should have been put together. The Mark Benioff, right, the Salesforce CEO, came out with the, people at home aren't as productive, which I take issue with, and he has his right to his opinion, but I think he's wrong. And with the tool stacks being as useful as they are and helping with productivity so much, right? Like if you can go to ChatGPT and you can get starters for, 12 months of blog posts in an afternoon, and then you spend the next 3 weeks just, copy editing and making them, fit what you need. That is fantastic, right? However, if there's this expectation from leaders that everybody is going to be this like, Superman or Superwoman of productivity because of the tool stack, well, that's just a false assumption, right?
Yes.
And if everything is automated and everything is just like, well, you have the data and you can make a decision in 30 seconds because you have all a year's worth of data and it's compared to the competitors and yada, 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 right? Like that, there's some give and take there.
I always think with SEO, especially looking at past, is that the only easy day was yesterday. I think I'm stealing the Navy SEALs phrase there, but it gets more difficult every single day because the tools are more easy to use. There's more of them. They're cheaper. More knowledge is shared. More people are coming out of either schools or just kind of naturally through their use of the internet, have more knowledge of kind of how the internet works and where that goes. I mean, if you go 10 years ago, the company was not real digitally savvy. Now they are far more digitally savvy, and the people around them are entry-level folks are better than they used to be. I mean, there's all these changes that kind of happen, but it also means the whole market kind of changes as along with it. So exactly. Right. So it's a building effect that, yeah, okay, so ChatGPT comes out and some people can write a whole bunch of articles very quickly. Great. As soon as everyone is doing that, that becomes your standard. And then it's still up to that individual. It's still up to that small team, still up to that small amount of knowledge to really break people into the next level and have them be able to succeed at that level. Like your kind of Tour de France example of, okay, that's now the baseline. We still have to move past it because that's the baseline and we're going to have to move past it.
Right.
The over assumption on what it can do and what it's going to be enabled and all the rest of that, I think always becomes kind of a falsity too. Let me throw another analogy at you. And this is not my own. This is from Making It podcast, David Picciuto and Bob Claggart. I think one of them, I can't remember which of them, brought this up in the idea of AI, especially around the idea of like product design and imagery.
Sure.
This is their analogy, which was an interesting one, was talking about early hip hop being not music because it's sampling and because it's taking other people's music. It's not their own music. Instead, it's not music at all.
Yes.
And then the counterpoint or the additional point to it, I think it was Claggart who mentioned this, was all AI comes from machine learning. Machine learning means that this is things that are already existing in the environment that it's learned from, which is the same as us. If you ask me to, draw a picture of a cup, I'm going to use my experiences, what I've seen, what I've done, and that's going to be the design that's going to be, occur. Same thing with AI. It's doing machine learning, which means it's just looking at what's out there already in existence, and then it's following the same maybe grammatical rules, you name it, and it's producing that blog post, that piece of content. So is it any different than basically sampling music, which, as we all now recognize now, is a musical style, like electronic music? Yes, it absolutely is. If you look at the basics of music and just how many notes we use, we're all kind of stealing from each other in some way or iterating off each other. So at what point is it you say this AI piece of content is the AI's piece of content, and what point is this AI's piece of content your content? Where's the line that you would put in this? And I think you guys are probably going to have different opinions on this of where you see that line.
I don't know that I have an opinion just yet, but my mind immediately jumps to there's this famous court case about at what point is it copying versus art, and there's something about it changing 3 times, or was sort of the line that was drawn in the sand, and then it's art, but otherwise it's copying. And the thing is, context matters, right? And it's. I'm going to pause there because I'm probably going to think through this a little bit more, and Dave's going to say something I'll be able to react to, and it'll be wonderful.
Dave, inflammatory statement, go.
That's my specialty. No, I think AI is going to be really interesting to watch, like AI content in the legal side of things, because you have all of this precedent for what is copyright, and I'm sure the early cases against sampling will come up as exhibits in the cases. But I will leave that to the lawyers and the politicians to make those laws for us to, work within. I think to your earlier points, I do feel like there's a couple of things, right? Everything there's always the pro and con of everything. On the one hand, it is really exciting that the quality of content can increase and that new standard can be there, right? Strategically, however, that also just puts more of an importance on the harder thing, right? What's the experience of the content? If, how does the audience react to it and change to it, right? Because if they're going to believe that everything is AI written, what are going to be the markers of the things that they should trust, right? Like you see this on Facebook or TikTok even, where you have people reacting to, like, I don't know, one that popped up the other day was this person in, I think it was Japan or Korea, making a Mountain Dew popcorn, which, God help me, I will never eat that. But, it's 15 seconds. Why not watch it, right? Oh, it is nuclear green. Okay, cool. But there were people reacting to it and commenting on whether or not this was legit. And they specifically called out whether or not there was a jump cut or if it was the full, thing. And that was definitely there. Like, people are becoming more savvy with the video editing on social, right? So that they can see, oh, you know what? That's probably where they faked it because they did this jump cut. So, being the performance side of things, right? Like video, conference speaking, all of that is going to be more of that trust factor for marketers and businesses down the road, because that is the hard thing, right? Going and being in person, speaking to real people, standing for something, right? Like, if you stand on a stage and make a declarative statement, you're going to get some flack for that no matter what, right? Because automatically a third of the room is going to disagree with you. And that's fine. That's part of the process. That's part of the fun, right? So I don't know, that my head is kind of ping-ponging with all the pros and cons of this stuff. I am excited by the tool stack. I'm always playing around with new tools and what could work with that kind of stuff. But I do think that the days of having 20, 30,000, marketers for these huge global enterprise companies is probably gone. You just won't need that many.
Marketers. So
how's that for an inflammatory statement?
Yeah, let's go there. I'll come back to the AI. I've got other stuff to say about ChatGPT. But
we're good. Left field.
Right, as we all know, marketing encompasses a lot of different things, right? So if we say, like, the days of big marketing organizations is gone.
Yeah.
Depends on what you mean by marketer and who that entails. Yeah. Because if you're talking about, teams of lots of copywriters, sure. Yep. Mm-hmm. Probably you don't need as many. You might need more editors, right? That the premium on that goes up. But I keep coming back to this idea that these tools enable us to do more. Certainly they're replacing some things we're doing, but they allow us to do it. So there's a larger premium that goes on, say, experiences, both online and in person. So now all of a sudden you just have a shift in what these teams are doing to focus more on authentic, trust building type experiences with customers.
I think there are kind of two on that one. One is, Ruthi, your kind of points, there's a complexity feature that kind of runs in there. Just kind of running back to that statement I made of looking back, I think what we were doing was called technical SEO.
Yeah.
Well, at that time, there was no such thing as technical SEO because it just was SEO. And eventually we got to the point where there was specialization because there was enough tools, enough competitive nature out there that it mattered to actually have someone full-time, working technical SEO versus non. There's still kind of, I would say, a couple different sides to SEO, but they keep splintering. And it goes back to, there's an agency I worked for. I realized at one point that, we were dominating when we did email campaigns. I wasn't part of that team. They did fantastic work. And there was 7 skill sets to send in a one email. Because there's a copywriter, there's a graphic designer, there was a front-end developer who cut up those, Photoshop files and put it in HTML. There's a database administrator who actually ran the whole thing. There's analytics. There's, you name it, a project manager on top of it. Like, there was literally 7 different people who wrote or were part of one email to be sent. And they did really good work and they did fantastic. partially because of basically the skills, the team, the complexity of it. And yeah, you can use MailChimp, but my gosh, that team will beat you every single day of the week because they are just that much more experts at that particular thing. So I think the marketer standpoint of, yes, we won't have many people painting billboards, but we still have people installing billboards out there too, and creating the graphic design that actually enables like the digital billboards, like the sizing, scaling, and effort that has to go behind that is different. So yeah, typesetters are out, copywriters are still in. Roles change, but people change too. The other part that makes me think about this is two. One is kind of Zappos, and they always try to create their moat, kind of the marketing side moat of against that competitive edge by creating tons and tons of video. They at one point, there's like 3 or 4 different full-time studios that were just constantly cranking out videos of Zappos employees holding a shoe, playing with it, showing it off, and that was it. And they just created tons of them. Some of the quotes you can still find about how many videos they're producing per day was insane. Wow. But from a competitive side, competitors couldn't just suddenly create thousands of videos. And ChatGPT can create lots of text, great, but it can't create imagery. DALL-E can create some imagery, but it's kind of weird. I mean, we're getting there. But video, like TikTok, as Dave mentioned, that's still being done by humans. I mean, still kind of is that next level now. So while the expectation of maybe the 90s was that you'd have a yellow page listing and maybe a web page, and then it became who has more web pages, who's doing better on the internet. The technology changes, the people change, the difficulty level is there too. And then the last one that I keep thinking of, sorry, I'm running to too many different examples here, but the last one was kind of if you think of cell phone usage of like 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, I'm just going to use those letters instead of going through the details on it. But beginning, you had basic calling. After that, you had D9 texting. It wasn't really great. And you had a green screen with a yellow kind of background of what was your
44447777999.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I was an expert at doing that underneath the desk, doing it blind. I could write whole messages out, and it was what a worthless skill now. But the changes in those kind of bandwidths changed our day-to-day lives because text messaging became a really common thing. Instant messaging became a common thing basically at 1 and 2. And then basically we got to 3G. We started doing imagery. So you could start doing MySpace. And you couldn't do video. You couldn't do TikTok because, my gosh, no one can have the bandwidth downloads to handle TikTok video. 4G and Wi-Fi connected abilities, especially the kind of letters we're on now, we can do that. 5G, we could download an entire DVD in a couple seconds. Then you can have a full AR experience, VR experience, because you have so much video bandwidth downloading that becomes a possibility. Like TikTok isn't even a thing, and it couldn't have been a thing in the mid-90s, the early 2000s, mid-2000s. I mean, it's like you have to finally get to the technology state where you can get to this level. And everything just upgrades to that point. The expectation is that you are a content creator. You are not writing, creating paintings, but now you're creating TikTok videos. You have to follow the trend. So ChatGPT I see as like just another instance of, okay, this is the next technological trend, but it's the same trend line we've been on this whole time. We're just kind of moving along that path. It's an uptick, it seems right now, but I'm not really sure if it's as widely adopted as some of the other stuff was.
That's a
not yet
really important point, Alex. I think as it's the sort of fundamental shifts that we're sort of riding. And when we think about SEO, one of those fundamental shifts was the advent of Google, right? That's where we are, where we are. And I wonder if the type of ChatGPT technology is almost akin to another Google. It's a different way in which people are interacting with the information on the internet. And if that sort of following from that, maybe part of the role that we take on as people who make more visible certain information on the internet, instead of focusing as much on Google, maybe we expand. Maybe we say, okay, how do we make information more visible within the ChatGPT world? How do we elevate certain information, right? Because right now it's pulling from everywhere. What are the mechanisms from which it's pulling, and how do we look into that, which has both some nice sides to it, and also, there's some black hat going on there that makes me a little nervous. But I think that's part of the evolution that we think of too, as people who make information visible on the internet, is sort of how I would put our roles in abstract as SEOs.
Well, and to that point, I think an important subcontext that comes to mind as we go through is everything that we've talked about is true for the Western economies, right? And context matters, right? The way you communicate, the technology that is in there. Now, ChatGPT in a Baidu experience or a WeChat context, how does that change? Right? What are the implications of that? Right? Because that's already a completely different ball game, right? There's not necessarily the reliance on the results as much, right? Or if you look at the prevalence of, chat apps, right? If you're able to create a whole bunch of text really, really quickly and then flood chat apps with them, what can you do with that, right? What are the implications of that?
Yeah, there's kind of an interesting, I guess, talk about inflammatory statements. Number one is, I think Bing will have a second wind to it.
Yeah, well, good job, Bing.
Yeah,
it'll get to 7% of the internet and not just 5%.
Yeah, I know. It's 1.5%. It's a pretty tiny percentage they're playing with right now. But they put in, I saw a news article, just the headline, so I haven't validated it yet, but about a large investment basically in OpenAI, and that they're really embracing kind of ChatGPT and trying to bring it into Bing. Google, on the other hand, is basically kind of pushing against it. They keep going back and forth, especially from the SEO side of, do they allow AI-created content? Do they not allow AI-created content? They've been mostly on the anti, but good luck on staying that way. I don't know, it kind of goes back and forth.
Anti until it's theirs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is going to be interesting because Bing is embracing it and incorporating it into their tools, and Google's trying to reject it, but that just means that Google will get left behind at some point. They have to pivot. So,
yeah.
And I mean, they use AI and machine learning in basically everything they do anyway. So I'm not sure where they're really putting the line. Yeah, right. I guess maybe that's the line. When it's ours, it's fine. The other one, just from a Black Hat standpoint, this is just kind of a funny thing. So I've always kind of kept tabs, at least, on Black Hat World. It's a pretty large forum for Black Hatters. And it used to be really interesting because a lot of people were creating their own tools. A lot of those tools sometimes had white hat usage. So a lot of were cheap and free. And a lot of people sharing content and, how-to articles and stuff like that. It's a definitely very entrepreneurial group. Well, yes, there's spammers there. That's kind of the mode that they're in. I revisited that site recently, just out of frank curiosity of saying, what are they up to these days? What's the latest kind of, there used to be X-Room, or there used to be a bunch of different kind of mass scale comment spamming kind of tools out there. And people post these daily journeys, and those ones I always love because it's very transparent to what people are doing. They try to use the community to kind of keep them honest and keep them on track to their road to $1 million kind of thing. And lately, it is all about writing lots of blog posts and posting them. And it's and they're all like, oh yeah, I'm going to scam Google. They don't realize, that we use these tools to figure out the keywords, and we're going to put the keywords in the pages and produce the stuff. And it's oh no, you got to be producing more content. You got to be writing it yourself. And it's got to be, they keep going back and forth. I'm looking at this. I'm like, you actually have backed yourself into a white hat corner.
Yep.
That's amazing.
It's so bad. It's good now.
I kept going through it. I was like, there's got to be somebody out here that is I've got the latest tool that spams the hell out of, WordPress, Squarespace, something injects, CSS somewhere. No, it was basically how to write more blog posts and how to basically make sure that they're not caught.
Which is funny because that's Black Hat, so 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Moral of the story, don't wear a black hat.
Or if you do, realize it's going to look pretty lame pretty fast because the systems that exist will eventually kind of shut down different avenues, and to the point where you can't comment spam the heck out of, Facebook logins.
Yep.
So.
Well, on that, I think on that life lesson, we will stop today's episode. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for hanging out. Let us know what you think on a lot of the ideas we've thrown out here. We'd love to know what any of y'all think. And see you in the next episode. Take care.
Cheers.
So.